Oh, hey! It is a wet day here on the moon. Those days where you stay indoors, have some chocolate, and pick a pencil, or paintbrush, or in my case, a digital paintbrush. Today I'm doing something that makes me really happy, so I hope you enjoy it as well. The video turned out quite long because I have so much speed paint footage to go through, so hopefully this is interesting still, and I'm going to do some off-the-cuff commentary. Also, let's take a sneak peek at the finished paintings first, so you have like something to expect. I'm going to show you a speed paint of some clouds I painted the last 2 weeks. Multiple clouds. Well, tiny slivers of landscapes underneath those, but these pictures are all about the clouds. I'm having a hard time, but when am I not? Let's skip the personal life stuff and focus on what you might find interesting, the art. I made and scrapped a lot of videos I wanted to make, and I have so much footage in my camera roll, but I can't access it now, problems with my external hardware I used to save everything on. It doesn't matter. Lately, to my usual dumbfuckery, I'm getting in this loop of burnout, trying to overcompensate by doing too much, and then burnout again, with no ideas. When I find myself in this, I find landscapes, especially nature-themed ones, to be the easiest thing for me. For the last 3 years, and this is my fourth, I have been doing landscapes in October through November. The clouds this year are this year's theme. Something easy, non-committal. I used to be very bad with landscapes. Back then, when I called them backgrounds, and that was part of the problem. I did them last after I finished a character design I really liked. Now I try to do both things in tandem to make up for stronger composition. It also helps with easing your brain. I now think about what a character is doing in a place, if they are the first time here or if it's an everyday occurrence to them. In my personal life, I don't go out that much. I feel very stuck at home. Like the whole world is covered in fog and I can't see further than my street. I'm sorry my voice here. I'm kind of sick. Let me talk a bit about the landscapes I'm painting. Hey, I still need to decide on a few things, but I'm opening my commissions again. I'm doing an emergency sale of 50% off. If you want something for Christmas, now's a good time to DM me. I make a video on that, like prices, commissions, and like general stuff on November the 1st. It's in work already, so look out for that. So this first painting here that, I didn't get too much into, I really try to just lean into the comfort zone that I have. I wanted to try to do my comfort zone and do some clouds and skies and, really lean into it, do something that would be easy for me to do. And also I really like the blue of this. You can see that I'm going back and forth quite a lot in these clouds and adjusting the colors. I find that I wanted to do a more 3D look to the clouds than I usually do. I have this tendency to paint them not touching each other and not overlaying and not having space like sky between the clouds implied. And that is bothering me. Like I think the clouds and the skies that I have been painting the previous years, or like in general in my art, has been very flat, and I want to get over that. You can see me on the second painting really painting on top of the first painting. I do this quite a lot in all of these, so each painting is based on the previous one or like just painted over it, and the texture will sometimes get through it. But with my first cloud painting here, I just went a usual style of blue sky, white clouds, and just did it in my very lazy sort of style comfort zone. And I wanted to do this thing, so I usually do landscapes for free in October, November, and sometimes into December if I can't get my ass into gear fast enough to like finish 10 of them. But I really wanted this. I wanted something easy because I am struggling this year a little bit more than usual with my mental health and with like stuff happening. As I mentioned, the emergency commissions thing will be a thing just because I started a new job and then now I don't have it anymore. You can guess it wasn't a good work environment here. By the way, I'm going through some old paintings of previous years in fast forward, but I was talking on stream. This was all streamed live on Twitch, which is why there's like a very fast art reel. I'm probably going to put something else there because it's like sort of embarrassing to like have the images flash through there so fast. Anyway, so I sometimes talk with people and just do live streams, and I do sometimes requests. If you have enough points, this is what I'm doing here. I'm doing a request of half an hour. I think this turned out like more 20 minutes. I was just doing something inspired by the Plains, this Magic the Gathering card, which I'm not sure, like mine obviously didn't turn out as well as the original, but for a request I think it's like kind of fun and neat, and I really pushed the yellow tones more than the orange. That's something that I sometimes do. I'm very particular about colors, even if the reference has like certain charm to it and obviously has its fans. I sometimes try to do my own spin on things, and that's not a bad thing. Oh yeah, so this painting that I'm doing here with the clouds and the big giant blue trees, I wanted them to be world trees. If you know this is a conspiracy theory basically, where they say that these big rock plateaus are basically like tree stumps. And I don't know how people come up with this, but I like world trees and mythology and like stories. I really enjoy that. I remember when I played Final Fantasy IX first, and I was like so looking forward to going on that tree, and when it came, like that was a pivotal story moment. But yes, I wanted these to be giant trees, and so I obviously needed some kind of ground here to like visualize that they're so gigantic. By the way, this nice saturated yellow sun there that we got there, that was an idea by Tsuchi, who mentioned it in my Twitch stream. Was like, hey, let me tell you something, you need to or this would, I think, look good. I don't know the exact words, but he sent me over an image even. I was so happy about that because I'm always happy to hear critique and be people giving their input as well. Who doesn't, especially if they're helping you with their good taste. I think it turned out so well. So I really like a good contrast. I like a good color palette. I really vibe with the color palette that I picked here, this complementary one. I remember that my references for these that I had open were mostly like paintings of like oil paintings of blue trees, but they were blue because of the shadow, and the harsh sunlight. And it was kind of like very fun, and I just wanted to do that. I felt like, no, this is not fantastical enough. Let's do that. But my prompt for this year is clouds, and so I have to include clouds or skies in some way or another. And yes, I went for a very dreamlike sense here. As you can see, the days are scrolling by the presence of a different outfit again. And here I did some texturing in the tree bark. I think that turned out well to like have a sense of space, actually, that the trees are not all on the, sitting on the same plane on the bottom. And then I did something stupid. I'm not sure if when Past Moon starts with this, but basically I started animating this. Oh yeah, first I'm drawing the tiny floating islands in. Those are so cute. So when I made the tiny floating islands, I thought, ooh, this would look good if they were moving, but if they're moving, you have to animate them. And here I'm cutting out basically parts of my previous painting, like masking it off, so that you can move them behind. And I think I even, here's me making like a tiny little GIF. And here's me masking out my painting again, sort of. And I even made them into transparent layers, so you could technically do that yourself. But then I did more animation because, I cannot stop myself. This year in particular, I've been like animating more and more. You've seen the intro that was also animated, especially like synchronizing myself to saying, oh, hey, oh, hey. I don't know. I found that to be so cute, and I really like my self sonar. which is just like the cartoon version of me that I paint. But yeah, animating clouds was so hard. It took me so long. Like half of the time of this particular painting was just spent on animating. And I don't know, it's interesting watching it back because you can see that I have like a still very painterly approach to this. So I'm doing some guidelines, I'm doing some guide frames, and then I'm just painting over it, you know, frame by frame, and having the old frames like still underneath it. I'm really a little bit chaotic when it comes to this, but I think it works. It gets a very dreamlike way of showing. The interesting thing about clouds is that the way that they grow, they are not a solid body that is moving, but they are moving because they grow and shrink at the same time at different ends, and they're also getting moved by the wind. You know, there's more to them than having like a solid object moving from side to side. So this is quite interesting. Here you can see me animating more of the clouds, but in the foreground, and them shrinking into existence, in and out of existence. And I thought that was kind of like neat because I wanted more than just one part to be moving. But I really like this central perspective moving there and being animated. And yes, this is me scaling up a tiny sketch because I find that tiny sketches make it easier to do the composition well. And here I'm painting in a mountain range because I went so hard with the fantastical clouds and everything and like the fantastical theme. I wanted something more realistic. It didn't turn out very realistically rendered, but I thought, oh, I'm gonna render this so realistic. This was also the fastest painting. For some reason, I did this in only one session. I did most of the paintings here in multiple sessions. Kind of unbelievable for me because I find that to be so hard. Here you can see me talking to people and like showing them different stuff. Some birds, I believe, and some. Oh yeah, the face cam. That was me showing some of my first paintings, or like not paintings, my first drawings as a kid that my mom kept in my big official folder of my birth certificate and like all of my actual stuff. Like she kept like 2 drawings from when I was a kid, and I was like, oh, that's so embarrassing. But I'm kind of glad because who can say that? It's kind of like very neat. Anyways, here I'm trying to do some clouds. As I said, I really wanted to push myself having more clouds overlap each other, like other clouds behind them far into the distance, because I think it adds more realism and space and having the sense of direction, something that I do shy away from. And do not think about the light source here because it doesn't make any sense. But I do find that this cloud that I like made up from my mind looks particularly cozy and comfy, and I like that the landscape is so tiny underneath. It's kind of very neat, I think. And also, it's something that like bothers me looking at this now. But there's this spot where I just didn't render anything out, where I kept everything kind of unfinished. But I really like the colors that I picked here and the way that I very slowly approached this in a very comfortable, soft way. This does make me feel great because I really like the clouds that have this. My mom calls it the head shape. She says I always draw clouds like pirate heads. I think that's kind of funny. So I like this. Oh yeah, and here we talked a little bit after I painted this wonderful landscape. I told people about the news of the day, which was that some frog species, which was discovered and thought to be one species in Madagascar, was actually more than one species. And the team and the scientists behind them identified them as 8 species, so from the 1 to 8, so 7 new subspecies, so to speak, or like 7 new species were discovered. And they're frogs from Madagascar, and so the scientist has a Tumblr blog, and that's how I heard about the news. And he gave some photos. Now, when I was reading the news, I was really excited, and I thought the photos that he took were great because he's also a photographer. And so I based this next painting heavily on one of the photos that he took because it had like wonderful, good clouds in it. And I thought it was so amazing. So yeah, that's what I did. And I also changed the composition a little bit just because I'm me and I need to do that sometimes, and I needed to do a focus. And also I merged it with like a fantasy, not really fantasy, but like a rendering of a frog, the Bofus. And these frogs, not only were they new discovered in Madagascar, but also they're like tiny tree frogs. And they were named after Star Trek characters. They have mating calls, which are tiny little chirps. And because of the way that the unique calls sound, kind of like a little bit like, I would describe them more like bird chirpings, like they sound like a bird, a tiny bird calling for their mate. But the scientists thought that their unique calls reminded them of Star Trek or like science fiction machinery. So they named them after Star Trek captains, and I think that's kind of amazing. Now, when I painted this, I wanted this to be, because I didn't know something that I'm going to tell you shortly, I wanted this to be Janeway, because Janeway is my favorite captain. I love her so much. She's so amazing, and I had like a big crush on her as a teenager, like a big gay crush. I thought she was so hot. It's like so embarrassing to talk about this now as an adult. But yeah, that was kind of like interesting to me, and I wanted to include her. But as Mark Scherz, the scientist whose photo I'm using and whose blog I was reading, pointed out to me on Twitter, this is actually not where Bufus Janeway is found, but this is where Bufus Arcari, I believe. I need to look it up again, but I'm putting something here on top of the atrocious art wheel, where you can see that I think, yeah, no, let's not talk about this. So I'm putting this on top of the atrocious art wheel so that you can like see the nice news about this frog. And here you can see me, you saw like a few seconds of the sketch of where I wanted the frog to be. The clouds here took like forever. I really wanted to do them justice. This is Janeway, by the way. And those tiny frogs were not the tree frogs. These were previous discoveries of the scientist. And I like to point them out because they were named after puns. They are called, the genus is called Mini, and they're called minuscule, minimum, and miniature. And I think that's so funny. I love them. I love that so much. Here I am showing off more art from the previous year of me doing landscapes for other people to use. Oh yeah, I didn't mention this. The landscapes that I use, if you watched my other videos, I painted 50 landscapes for you. I do paint landscapes that are free to use. You can download them on my Ko-fi. You can also donate me money, which I would greatly appreciate. I usually try not to brag about this, but stuff's happening in my life, and I do appreciate money. But they are free to use. You can download them for free. They come in zip folders sorted by the years. And I do take requests, like if someone is like, hey, do a desert, I will do a desert. Hey, do something, you know, I'm doing stuff that people send me in and be like, hey, I need a landscape like this, which is like kind of cool because I do this project and I started this, and this is why it's called Community Gardens, because I wanted this to be for other people to use as backgrounds, to put their own characters in, or as, you know, something to animate over, or to just like have fun and put it on the desktop, or like print it and like cut it out, or like whatever, you know, do collage. You don't need to credit me. I do not care for credit. I don't believe in copyright. I do not believe in the capitalistic system here. You know, I believe on mutual help and just growing as an artist and having fun with whatever you find online. And this is just some stuff that I really appreciate. Now, obviously, I can't give away the rights to my own art. I cannot give away the rights to anybody's photos. So this specific piece here where I'm putting in the frog, I love it so much, and I would ask of you that you respect this as, you know, it's an artistic rendition of something, someplace which is quite of significant to Mark Scherz, so please be respectful of that. You still can edit it in whatever you like, because it's not the photo. It is quite different still. But yeah, please don't kill any frogs. That's what I'm trying to say. Here for some reason I didn't want to like deface the landscape, the Madagascan landscape, and so I painted over a previous painting of clouds rather than starting from that one in this, I guess, telephone game of working on top of my previous art game, my previous art pieces. So here I am again. I wanted to go from a very heavily naturalistic or as realistic as I can, like push it. I was really trying to go as close to realism as I am comfortable with going. I tried to go in the opposite direction again and do some very messy, very fancy art, just the way that I like it. Don't use much reference or like use many reference pictures, but not one that I'm closely basing it off of, right? So I was looking at stuff. I show this one painting of like a bird quite often because that is inspiration for the paint texture, which will come later on. But I wanted something big and dramatic and a painting which reminds you more of the classical paintings. Classical painters often had like big skies to emphasize that all earthly matters is tiny and insignificant. And, many paintings were commissions of the church, and also many people in the past were very religious. Even artists that I really, really love and admire were religious. And here we were talking about some art movement, Neo-Impressionism. As you can tell, my streams can be quite chaotic, and I do take breaks to talk about whatever people bring into into the conversation. Because I find that, especially since I do art and I do art digitally a lot of the times, people come in and they want to talk about it. So that is something that I try to do and put a lot of effort in. So with this, I wanted to do it in like a very classical looking painting, but still have all of my own tiny little mannerisms. Like you can see the little squares here, which is something that I do. I have this brush that I created myself. I do create a lot of the brushes that I use myself. And it just randomizes the colors a little bit. So in hue and saturation and what's the third one? No, hue, saturation, I think that's it. Value. Value is the third one. And in value just a tiny bit so that I can get some more colorful effects, get more color variation inside of it. And then I use that brush on an overlay. So I make these tiny little squares. Basically, it's like a randomizing thing. And I use that and I blend them out into my painting. And as you can see, sometimes I leave them in quite a lot. But yes, I was inspired by these storm clouds. I wanted to... Oh, here we're taking a break and listening into some music. I really, really like that. Oh, I got... This is kind of amazing. So my birthday is in October, which is why I do this community gardens project in October, like starting in October. My birthday is on October the 19th. And I got so many great things this year from people. Like from my close friends, I got some very nice things, some nice loot, right? And from my friend AP, I got some music. So I got music the last years as well, and I'm so glad and so grateful that people feel like, oh yeah, let me give you something. And yeah, I really needed that, and I listened to this on the stream. Giving it a first listen here, and I later listened to it again. He gave me 3 tracks, and yeah. The first one is very pumpkin-y. I love that one the most. But he ordered it the way that the third one, which was his favorite, was like last, because he thinks, best things last. That's kind of like a fun little concept. Oh yeah, so back to the art. I was painting here. You can see that I'm kind of hand painting in a little palette knife effect. And then I'm putting in the next landscape before I get to talk about this. That's so typical of me. Moon, how dare you? Why are you this way? Anyway, so the next landscape, I wanted to do something, again, different to the last vibe. So you can tell that I'm always like switching from one vibe to another, really showing I'm fed up with this kind of painting. Let me do the next one. I didn't even finish the palette knife painting effect because I was so angry and I had to like do more. And I'm filling my coffee cup an atrocious amount of time, over and over again, being like, okay, not enough coffee. So I started painting this thing here. It's a castle in a very foggy situation. I wanted this to look like classical Disney villain because I read a Tumblr post which was like, ooh, classical Disney villains were like this, you know, and then we were listening about them and their evil layers. And I was like, you know what, they are right. And I remember the clouds of them being very high contrast, very fantastical colors, and just really liking them and thinking that looks quite cool and amazing. And I wanted that vibe. And so I experimented a little bit with the colors. First I went monochrome, but then I decided, no, that we can't have that. And I went with this sickly green yellow color here of the sky. I think it helps a lot with the contrast. Now, I don't think that a realistic sky in this color would cast as much fog, because when we have very much foggy situation, you cannot even see the sky, but the sky is just gray and uninteresting, you know. So that's cheating a little bit, like putting two weather conditions into each other, which would not meet in this gray, I believe. But yes, and here you can see that I tried really hard at first to use only harsh and straight lines, but then I abandoned this idea quite quickly because I like my clouds to be wavy. I like it when they are whimsical, and I love soft brush strokes. So for whatever reason, I couldn't do with the straight lines, with just making this into yeah. I had to go back to my curves, and I don't think it looks bad at all. I think it looks good. It looks menacing. Maybe it could have looked more menacing if I could have stuck to the just straight brushstrokes, right? But I couldn't. Sometimes you have to admit defeat. And also this year's theme is to do lazy paintings, to do something that I can whip up without much effort, again, because I need to give myself a little bit of a break. So yeah, that's what is happening here. Here I'm carving out the mountain a little bit and trying to like make a little pathway here on the mountain range. And I made a tiny little neighbor to the evil castle. You can only really see it when you zoom in the finished painting, but I think it's kind of fun. And yeah, so we have more fantastical elements here again with a tree in the background, which is quite big. I thought it would be good to like have homage to the wood tree image by having like a big tree that's so big that's kind of like growing on top of a big mountain here and like destroying it by its growth. I also wanted the foreground elements to look like there were claw marks in the ground. I thought that was kind of interesting. Like you can imagine that whatever is living in that castle gave like ravaged the land and clawed it up. And the tiny trees here are optional, so you can like get the trees or you cannot. I like to have multiple variants of my paintings. Sometimes they come with only one version, but most of the times they come with multiple versions. Oh, and here's the last speed paint part before it's going to cut off. So I need you to embrace it because we are going to very quickly end this year. But here I am, here past moon is, doing like a little bit of a palette knife kind of painting texture. As you can see, I'm painting this in by hand. So I'm making a harsh highlight where I believe that the edge of the painting stroke would be, and then putting a shadow in, and then the brush strokes. And I need to like simplify some of the colors here to make it believable that it's like one stroke of the palette knife, right? And that's kind of what this turns into. And I find that it looks kind of like pearls. like petals of a flower or pearls or something like that. Okay, no, I cannot shut up here. So two things I wanted to mention because I think it's kind of like important. The tree frog that I painted, the Bufus acari, I showed hopefully I showed in quite some detail the article scrolling by on the side. I think it's very good and important to do work like this. And also the second thing that I wanted to point out is someone left a very nice comment on this painting, and it was Beowulf on for Affinity. So I want to like acknowledge that and say my thanks. So here is the comment. We were talking. I just like clarified that this is a frog, and part of the naming convention of naming them after Star Trek captains is not just, you know, because it's fun and nerdy and like a good reference to their unique calls, but also because it helps with a little bit of attention from the general public, hopefully, and gives more way for interest in frogs and their conversation and, you know, effort to help the environment, which is having troubles with fires. I'm sorry, I'm like very much fumbling the back here, I'm sorry. But yeah, so Beowulf, after, you know, talking about that, wrote, I knew it took many layers, referencing the art here. It is a wonder how you know the exact colors to use, layering hues ranging from grays, blues, purples, browns, as well as where and the textures. For real, light to heavy. In other words, mix of colors you wouldn't think of using together at first. Also, I realized something from your cloud studies, that rather than having clouds straight across the page, have them bend or arc in the sky, it gives a wonderful look of atmospheric depth as well as just being more interesting. I should have done that long ago, as well as mixing colors than just boring blue hues. Thank you for the wake-up call. So I'm so glad when people like my art. I'm very honored. I'm glad that especially this piece, which I thought was like great news, you know, and I thought it was like great public stunt in a way, did resonate so much with Beowulf. And I do agree. I have this way, sometimes I question myself if I'm not too kitschy, if I'm not too cheesy by doing so many colors and like layering them on top of each other and having such silly attempts at texture and everything. And in the end, I think that's fine, actually. I like it. I like my approach. And there's no deep science in there other than I want my paint strokes to build on top of each other and to very slowly build up a visual history first before I'm actually like doing something. And I probably go into depth of my method a little bit on a later time, but that's it for today. And yeah, glad you watched this video. Okay, that's it. Okay, thanks, bye.